We're going to talk a little bit about collection classes, but we're going to be talking about arrays. Arrays are the only thing outside of system.collections that are actually considered collections. System.collections can contain interfaces that you can work with. As we know about interfaces now, it makes it much easier to work with them. And there are classes called collection classes, which you can work with quite easily as well. Lots of them. So let's just talk about arrays and we'll get into other things as well. Arrays are the only collection, like I said, they're outside of the collection's namespace. But they're so important that they're actually the base class for all array types. And this means that the actual system.array cannot be instantiated. So it's important to know that. We'll talk about that in the object-oriented section. You must specify the type of the array. And we'll talk about what exactly an array is as well. This is just a high level. The elements of an array can be any type, but all the elements must be of the same type. If you want to do some strange or something that's more complex, then you want to use one of the other collection classes. Arrays also support things like sorting, which is pretty cool, and we'll see that when we look at some examples coming up in the later sections. I just do it in an example. And you can also do binary search as well on your arrays. You just want to use the dot notation to find out what your array is going to support, and you can just browse the documentation to get some really in-depth information on working with arrays. This is how you would actually create and initialize a new integer array, for example. You specify int, and there's no space between, just makes it more clear to see what it is. Open bracket, close bracket, and then your variable, and this is going to create a new array here, a new int 5 array. That means you have 5 elements here. You don't have to even specify anything here if you didn't want to. This is going to initialize this with these values here, and that's going to automatically set it up for 5 where it starts at 0, 0, 1, 2, 3, 4, and this altogether is 5. That's the bound of what you have here. You can also see a visual representation of what your array might look like in memory. You see that this is the element that you're going to work with and pass that in int of something, 0, 1, 2, 3, 4, and then the values could be stored here, as you can see, mapping over to what the values are here as integers. So you want to stay within the bounds of your type. So an array is a group of contiguous memory locations of the type that's contained within the same variable name. All the same type, that's an array. You refer to these elements by the position number. So we want to find int of 1, well, that's going to give back minus 22. And that's what you can see here. AR, open bracket 0, close bracket is equal to 22. This is how you assign. And if you want to get the value back, this is how you would do that. If you did it with a console, you could do it with however you want to, of course. I could be the element, and then you could pass that into the array as well to get that particular element, as long as you're within the bounds. Working with the length property of an array also will give you the length. We'll take a look at that as well. You can also have multi-dimensional arrays. And this just means that you have rows and columns, and if you created an array and then you wanted to reference it, this is how you would do it. AR open bracket and then your 0, 0. You can see as we move across here, the right side here, this is going to be your column. So the first column would be 0, second column here, third column, etc. And you're always starting with 0. So there's actually 4, but we start at 0. Same thing with rows. If you want to put the rows, that's going to be the first side here, the left side, and that's how you would specify your arrays for multi-dimension. If you wanted to get to the second row of the third column, this is how you would actually reference it. This is how you would set that up in your statements. Arrays are great, and they're really the old-fashioned way of working with things. The collection classes are the modern way, commonly called data structures, but arrays do have quite a lot of value. They help you out quite a lot, and they've been around for such a long time that it's a shame not to use arrays. So if you need to do certain things, of course, you're going to want to use arrays, especially when dealing with math, but other things might come in more handy for actually getting to work with different types and things like that. And we'll see how to do that as we move forward.